Hello and welcome to Top Secret TV. My name is David Becker. On tonight's show we catch up with Mark and Carla with the latest spooky news behind the news in between the lines, and I'll be speaking with Len Lawrence about our Hollow Earth theories. But first we catch up with Mark and Carla with Between the Lines. G'day Mark, g'day Carla, how you going?
Hi Dave, great.
How you doing?
What sort of news you got for us this week?
Oh, I think we've got some exciting stories this
Got some
week.
spooky
Always
ones.
interesting.
Some spooky ones, but nothing better than a birthday. To start up, we've got the universal birthday. Space scientists have been both celebrating and worried recently. Why? Because they've calculated the age of the Milky Way's oldest stars at being at least 11.5 billion years old.
Well, what's so exciting about that one?
Well, what worries them about this is that the universe is thought to be only 8 billion years old. Florida physicist Terry D. Oswald and the team are perplexed that it seems that the stars are older than the universe and it doesn't make sense. Their quote themselves.
And I don't think it does. That's an interesting one. Now, this is coming from a big company doing some research into the paranormal, and it's actually Sony, the international entertainment and audio-visual equipment manufacturer, are getting into the paranormal for profit. Research teams have been investigating Chinese holistic medicine, extrasensory perception, and many other paranormal areas.
It's a lot for Sony. Music.
And extrasensory perception. The corporation's Extrasensory Perception and Excitation Research Laboratory believes that within 5 to 10 years they will create a new form of energy capable of not only providing power for electronic products, but for the whole planet. They believe that this future science combines our modern knowledge and science technology with ancient wisdom and Oriental science, thus moving beyond the 5 senses and into the paranormal. Obviously, they can see a profit to be made.
I think that's probably when we'll find these things out, when you can make money out of the situation.
Yeah, that does usually happen.
Usually it's just been taking money out of their pocket. But on to another story. History of Stonehenge, not rock solid. Stonehenge may not have been built by the British after all, but by the French around the year 2400 BC. The British newspapers are a little bit upset, though, that retired Hull University lecturer Dr. Aubrey Burle, who after studying European prehistoric monuments for 40 years, has found that the stones were laid out in a pattern common to many sites in France, and suggests that the foreign star cult overcame the native British lunar one.
I'm sure that'll make the British very happy.
Yes, it's a little bit upsetting when your heritage flies out the door.
Yeah.
But while this may seem logical, considering the advanced culture in the Europe at that time, the British newspapers were not so kind to Dr. Aubrey Burle, amongst other things saying that the site must be unique to Britain and that the nasty little French must be trying to claim the site as their own. The theory was unhinged. Well, obviously, history must not be rewritten.
Because it takes too long, and a lot of paper
Definitely,
and
there's a lot
pens
of
too.
it, yeah.
Now, listen to this one. Brain-powered flight takes a weight off a pilot's mind. Last week, if you remember, we read a report of how the US military were planning on using mind power to fly unmanned attack aircraft. Well, the British company Cyberlink Mind Systems is testing a revolutionary new system that already does use the power of thought, or the brain, or mind.
Right.
Is there a difference anyway?
No, not at all.
Disabled people have been testing thought-powered wheelchairs in the Cyberlink Mind Systems. The wheelchairs will be on sale soon for around £10,000, which, you know, it's quite costly.
It's good to see, though, that it's some goods coming out of it.
Meanwhile, pilots are testing a more advanced system in simulators, flying pilots by just using their thoughts to control them. The inventor of the system, Dr. Juncker, said that he developed the idea while sailing in the Virgin Islands. The device works by interpreting an assortment of undulating electrical pulses emitted by the brain. I reckon we should do a program on how science fiction is becoming fact.
Yes, I've got an acquaintance who always wanted to look into Star Trek. The many concepts on Star Trek have slowly become reality in today's science. Yeah. Well, if science doesn't get smart soon, experts say that the governments are destroying the world. Irresponsible governments are rushing the world into an environmental and economic disaster by funding the destruction of land and oceans and the atmosphere. This is according to 3 independent reports recently published. One of them is by the United Nations Environmental Agency, the second by a Washington think tank called the World Watch Institute, and a third report by British Government Advisor. They all claim governments are not tackling the problems of deteriorating water and air resources seriously. Western governments were spending up to $641 billion a year in Australian dollars. The funding, unfortunately, is not helping the destruction of the forests. Everything is just going into making more money.
We're still having the problem, aren't we?
Definitely. Global warming's coming along. We've spent $100 million on power stations alone in the world in the last several years, which does nothing but actually destroy the environment and then eventually get us back to
Square one?
square one.
Or worse.
Yet again.
Worse than we started.
Yes. The Institute's report said too many governments are pursuing economic growth at any price, ignoring the fact that the damage to the atmosphere and the oceans would severely disrupt the world's economies, to say nothing of our own extinction.
That's true.
They're not interested in that, I'm afraid. In Nairobi, the UN Environment Agency warned that almost 3 billion people would be severely short of water within 50 years. In
What
Africa,
are we doing about that?
Giving money to organisations where the money doesn't actually go
We've still
there.
got the problem again.
The point is that in Africa, there are 486 million hectares of land, an area more than 12 times larger than Britain, and about the size of Western Australia. Already, they have moderate or severe soil erosion. Most oceans were being overfished, with more than 75% of the world's species declining or facing extinction, because the governments have not tackled the global crisis. For those who have read the case book on Alternative 3, or Alternative 3 by Jim Keith, this is a very familiar tale. It's a tale about the rich elite of the world, and they've initiated a secret program of space migration to escape the environmental pollution of the planet.
So that's always good, isn't it? Dirty up the place and leave. What a great plan.
Yes, but the important point is this book, we don't know if it's fact or fiction, the way it's been put together. They devised to leave the planet to go to either Moon or Mars, and by doing that, really looking into the research that's been done at the lights being seen on the Moon or Mars, people have suggested this project's already done.
Already done.
Yeah, already up
already-
and coming. It's a big story, but maybe you should read it. Alternative 3 by Jim Keith. But
Okay, I better read out some
yeah,
upcoming
cut to the
events,
upcoming events.
that we read out every week. Now, there's some new ones. Again, though, I told you last time, Nexus Conference 1997, May 24th and 25th at the Gazebo Hotel in Sydney. Guest speakers include Robert Bouval, speaking about the recent discoveries and research concerning the Great Pyramid and Sphinx. He's also the co-author of The Orion Mystery and Keepers of Genesis, if you've read those.
Not myself, no.
Well, and also they'll have Linda Moulton Howe there, author of Alien Harvest, talking about the latest in UFO research.
Simon Trelon, he's retired from the British intelligence. He'll be presenting insights into the conspiracies and the future. Harlan Gerard, one of America's foremost researchers into mind control, Don Maish, Australia's leading independent researcher and lobbyist, will be talking about the effects of the electromagnetic fields and TV phone towers and power lines' effects on human health.
And you'll also see Anthony Hansen, the inventor and researcher into Tesla technology. If you want to contact Nexus, write to Nexus Magazine, PO Box 30, Mapleton, Queensland 4560, or you can phone 07 5442 9280.
There's another major conference coming along. It's the Third World Congress on Cancer, and it's to be held at, in Darwin on April the 25th to 27th. 8 international speakers explore the very latest and successful treatments already being used in Europe, China and Japan. For more information, contact Independent Medical Research Suite 401, BMA House, 135 Macquarie Street, Sydney 2000. The phone number there you can contact them on is 02 247 5366.
Now, there's also a few groups in Melbourne which meet to discuss alternative science and technology, health, UFOs, conspiracies, etc. These groups are Astro Networks, Phenomena Research Australia, Melbourne Nexus Association, the Tesla Society, World Harmony, the Global Energy Network International, and also the Victorian UFO Research Society. Now, if you want details on any of these stories or further information, please don't hesitate to write to us here at Top Secret TV. The address, care of Alan James, the producer of TSTV, PO Box 235, Kangaroo Ground 3097, and please include a self-addressed stamped envelope. Now, I think that's all we've got for this week.
That's all for us this week. We'll be going back to Dave shortly to give us a bit of an interview.
Thanks, Mark.
That's all right, Dave?
Thanks, Carla.
Thanks, Dave.
Enjoyed it.
That was, yeah, I did. That was quite interesting. I was thinking about the wheelchair thing. Yep. Okay, I'm speaking here with Len Lawrence from the Hollow Earth group or people. Is it a group or is it yourself as an individual researcher?
Well, at the moment it's just myself as an individual researcher, but there have been groups, but unfortunately they're no longer in the strength of existence that
Right.
they were.
Were these groups in Victoria or Australia or?
Well, there was one in New South Wales, the Hollow Earth Society of Australia,
Right.
which was ran for about 2 decades, I think, and finished up around the early 80s, sort of thing.
Right. So how did you actually get interested in the Hollow Earth theory?
Well, having examined all the theories out there, I settled on that because it struck me as a concept which could satisfactorily answer a whole range of supposed mysteries, from UFOs to dinosaurs still being in existence, various things, you know, like that. Sort of
Right.
But,
And can you outline the major, or the theory itself? Can you explain to our viewers what it is?
all right, if we go to the diagram.
Yep.
The theory itself is an alternative for the internal structure of the Earth, as opposed to what scientists today are telling us. The concept is that the planet is not a solid layered structure with a molten core, but rather that it is been formed into a hollow with large polar openings approximately 900 kilometres in size. It does have very sound basis in known physics, which is not what scientists would like us all to believe, but it does have such a basis.
Can you tell us a little bit about that scientific basis? For example, I would imagine centrifugal force must have something to do with the formation of planets.
Yes, well, the understood physics would tell us that as a planet, any spatial body contracts as it cools, that it will contract into a solid mass, whereas the hollow worlds theory, as it should be termed really, points out that centrifugal force must play a role, because any amount of matter that is vortex spinning in that manner will have to be affected by that, just as a showground ride will, if you consider a showground ride that will attract you and you were not able to move, that sort of concept.
As we can see from the diagram on the screen at the moment, there's like a sun structure in the centre there.
Well, that relates to C-force, which is an important part of the equation. You're going to have a certain amount of matter at the centre of this spinning object, which cannot be attracted outwards, and that amount of matter will be allowed to condense into essentially a small sun. That is the concept.
So why is it that it won't be thrown outwards like the rest of the matter? Is there some sort of gravity neutral point?
It is a neutral point, yes.
Right.
And as for the polar openings, the reason you have openings is simply because any spinning matter will have 2 points where the C-force is equally strong as the centre, and matter is not going to be able to cohere into a solid surface.
And those points are always along the vertical axis, along the axis that it spins,
Along
I
the
presume.
spinning axis, yes, that's right.
We have some photos with some of the dimple, showing the sort of
Yes.
dimple structures or holes in the north and south poles. We have some ozone shots. If we can go to those, I just want you to talk us through it. Can you
Well,
describe what that
this is easily the most famous shot, which was taken back in the late 60s, which appears to show a large opening in the North Pole. And another shot, which is following this one.
So they're actually cloud structures, are they? What we saw there?
Yes, that is cloud structures. The hole, as it were, is only visible, it's theorised, because the cloud structures have parted, but there is another reason to that, which I'll get to later, why it is visible in that shot, whereas usually it is completely obscured by cloud and is therefore invisible.
Now, there was a gentleman by the name of Admiral Byrd. I couldn't tell you. Was it the 50s? Was it?
Well, his first flights to the poles were actually way back in the 20s,
Right.
late 20s, and that carried through into the late 50s, well after the Second World War. And his flights were principally concerned in what he himself termed as mapping out new territories. He was very excited about this, and he made several radio statements and television appearances at the time, stating that there was a previously unknown land in these regions.
And was he acting as a representative of the Navy, or?
Yes, well, he always was employed as a naval personnel,
American
as
Navy?
the US naval personnel,
Right.
even though he was actually retired for most of his active career in that regard, yes. But he did actually, he's on record as actually stating that they actually travelled over terrain in excess of 2,300 miles over terrain that should not be at either polar area. And
Like
it was
green
ice,
grass
it was
and-
ice-free terrain with where free-flowing water, previously thought extinct animal life was filmed, and this was actually captured on film and shown as newsreel footage at the time in cinemas.
Really?
at the time,
Have
yeah.
you seen that footage? Or?
I have not seen it, but there's a good many people who recalled this up till recently, and it is recorded in books that this footage did exist. It's uncertain now what happened to it, but there are still photographs of this footage also.
Right.
Existing.
Now, there's some of the more radical theories associated with polar hollow Earth, and one of them, which I've heard, is to do with the Nazis establishing a base post Second World War, running away in U-boats, and then establishing a base at the North or South Pole. I can't remember which. Have you heard that theory?
Yes.
No, I don't want you to comment on the theory. What I want you to do is could you tell us how theories like that have a role in pulling down the credibility of other theories? Like, you know, when something like this comes out, it gets thrown in the same job lot with a whole stack of really out there kind of theories. Does that pull down the credibility of an idea that might have some scientific merit?
Well, certainly. The whole enemy of this theory is because it simply sounds too fantastic to be true, simply put. It is not receiving the attention it deserves simply because of that. And I wouldn't say that the Nazi connection with a UFO base, as they're calling it, at the South Pole, Antarctica, may not have a certain amount of truth to it. I mean, it's hard to say. I think you'll find that more is referring to the polar opening rather than any base,
Right.
UFO base. That it is a reference to that which is being cloaked in this UFO story. Sort of thing.
Okay. We've got some more pictures
Yes.
of some. Is that other planets in our solar system? No, that's the Earth.
That is the
obviously.
Earth. It is another shot far more recent than the previous one seen.
Right. And there's like that spherical black
That is-
shape up the top. Is that a shot of
It
the
quite possibly is a shot of the North Polar opening. Yes.
And
Yes.
I believe we have another photo of Mars
Yes.
where it's a similar sort of thing.
Yes, the Martian shot. What that in fact shows is the outline of the opening. But
Okay. So, is these principles basically true of all planetary bodies? Like,
yes, well
including the Sun?
not the Sun. The concept runs that any planetary body must have been formed in this process. That's the laws of physics will dictate that. In fact, there are several photographs showing other planets' polar openings. Some material I've got here, some very interesting stuff which the NASA boffins have hoped to conceal, as we have a shot here of Jupiter's North Pole. Now what you'll find is that they have actually taken cutaway points of the shot and made a collage to conceal the opening. You can actually see part of the opening still here where they haven't been able to properly blend into the centre there. And that is fairly typical of photographs of the poles of other planets. Another shot we have here, which is fairly crudely concealed, is you can see in this shot here what appears to be a black mark has been placed over the North Polar area, where there would quite possibly be a shot of the actual opening. This is actually a moon rather than a planet.
Right, and as we were talking about during the break, there's usually, if it's NASA photos, the standard reason given is that the satellites didn't take photos of that region.
Yes, the standard reason it was either out of range or it was obscured by some cloud formations or something like that. But
and looking at that picture that we just saw then, with like almost a thumbprint black bit coming out, does it seem likely that that is the result of the photos just missing that particular section? I mean,
well, it doesn't, because there are other photos showing that section and showing what appears to be. I have a shot here. What appears to be a opening. Now what we have in this photo here.
This is the same planet.
It is the same moon, and what
moon.
we have is a shot where you can just see there what appears to be an opening there, and quite surely for the south polar region you have another one there. You can actually see the light. See, a telltale sign is of the theory is that there's a luminosity to the areas also from this internal sun. Now this is seen on all of the planets. All of the planets have large polar ice caps which quite frankly shouldn't be there. The scientists can't seem to come up with a suitable explanation as to their existence, and a luminosity that shouldn't be there. And in the case of Uranus, the planet is actually, it's actually Neptune, I think, sorry. The planet is actually rotating about the sun completely inverted. Now the pole that is on the darkest side, which the sun is not hitting, there is not only a luminosity there that just should not be there. It's actually akin to our aurora borealis and australis, but there is a definite heat pattern on that area which quite frankly should not be there, and scientists can't explain.
It can't be explained in terms of light, the aurora borealis, some sort of natural electromagnetic
Well, one of the
climate phenomena.
Yeah, one of the theories in regards to hollow Earth theory for the aurora borealis and australis is that it is not actually caused by solar radiation, but it is a reflection of the internal sun out of the openings. That is the theory.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what Admiral Byrd saw when he flew over? Because I understand, did he have some diaries, or he wrote it down in some detail, didn't he?
He did compose some diaries. The diaries were pretty much locked away shortly after his death.
Was his death mysterious?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm not going to draw allusions to whether it was mysterious or not. But the statements he made were sufficient to cause some concern, I think, in US government policy, and they certainly did clamp down. What he saw, going into more what he saw large areas of forests and free-flowing water, and animals. Like he did claim that they caught sight of some mammoths, woolly mammoths, that are supposedly extinct on the surface of this planet. But what I find more interesting is what polar explorers have discovered in general. There's far too much warmth in those areas. The further south or north you go on those continents, you have far too much heat variation there. And beyond that fact, there's also, as I mentioned before, the aurora's activity. The aurora's activities in the region, Australis and Borealis, are not consistent with the scientific explanation for them.
All right, just as a last question to finish
Right.
up, if we assume for a moment that this is the way planets are formed and that they are in fact hollow, what are the possible implications for like how we view our solar system and
Well, the implications are what we finally have here is an explanation as to why a planet is in existence. The current thinking is that planets came about purely as a mathematical error in the greater scheme of creation, but what if there is actually a purpose to all planets, to hold life within the world rather than without? We can see that life cannot exist on the outside of our neighbouring worlds.
So, are you implying that it's possible that we're intended to live on the inside of our planet, or that life is nurtured and the inside
life is nurtured and intended to exist on the inside of a world rather than the outside? As to why we're on the outside, you can draw any number of conclusions to that. That's an endless question.
Yeah, and in fact, looking at history of mythology through that particular lens, it makes you reinterpret the goblins at the bottom of the garden and stuff like that. I mean, it's remotely possible that they were living beings.
Yes, there's Scandinavian legends about a world called Ultima Thule, which resides as far north as can be travelled. Legends such as that come into scope. All manner of mysteries and questions can come into scope if you accept this theory as a truth, rather than as a weird science subject.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Len.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's all. Thanks very much. Okay, next week's show, we've got Steve Birch from the Monash Uni Bioelectronics Group, and he will be speaking about interspecies research development. This is probably a very new area to do with communication between, in this case, dolphins and human beings. So, and of course we'll have Mark and Carla with the latest news. So, until next week, good night.